What's up, y'all? It is Kiara the woman, and welcome to another affair of a Single Mother Success podcast where we discuss all things womanhood and provide weekly doses of self love, empowerment, and insight to the mental and spiritual being of you as a woman, no matter where you are in your womanhood journey. Okay, so let's talk forgiveness. And let's start with the facts, of course. What is forgiveness? By Google's definition, it is the action or process of forgiving or being forgiven. So, yeah, that's Google's definition. My definition of this is accepting and understanding the true position in the person being forgiven, even if that's yourself, when the mistake occurred, and extending grace and compassion to them, especially if you haven't lived the life they have or close to it, and even if or even though you can't bring yourself to understand their actions because of your own point of view. My definition is completely longer than Google's definition, and it's because I define things myself. I think that sometimes definitions could be surface, and I think that's why people don't think deep enough about certain things. But to me, that's how I define forgiveness. Is literally the process. I'll take that part of Google's definition. It's literally the process of accepting and understanding a person's true position when they're asking for forgiveness, when they made the mistake, like the mistake that they're asking forgiveness for, like understand the position that they were in. Like, of course, there's some things are like you can't excuse, but when it's like real things, like I'm not even gonna say stress, because stress is not a reason that you should put your hands on a woman if you're a man. But I've experienced that. So, but I forgave him for it. So, but and just cuz you're stressed, you shouldn't like verbally abuse a woman either. But I forgave him for that too. So, but like I'm saying, when it's real things like mental. Okay, so I know I might get some backlash for this, but postpartum depression, um, those things like that, I feel like you kind of have to step outside of yourself and understand that person's position when they made the mistake that they made. Especially if they were reaching out for help and didn't receive it. I mean, I'm just saying, I just think that forgiveness should be defined with substance, I think, because it's more than saying I forgive you, or yeah, just I forgive you, don't do it again. Or even on the opposite side, like when you're asking for forgiveness and you're saying like, will you forgive me, is more than saying asking like, will you forgive me, can you ever forgive me. Is more than that, because you got to change your actions behind it. Because if you do it again, then at some point this is just something that you do, and you just realize that, is that like a form of manipulation? Somebody let me know. If you ask for forgiveness but you continue to do something knowing that the person will forgive you anyway, is that manipulation, or is that called something else? Y'all let me know. Anyways, though, so yeah, my definition is completely, I wouldn't say completely different, but it's definitely longer than Google's definition. And I developed this definition from my 28 as of yesterday, years of life. I know a lot of people wouldn't say that, or they would say that I'm only 28 and that's not enough time to be trying to tell anybody anything. But the truth is, wisdom comes with experience and not age. And on the contrary, I've lived a lot of life in my 28 years. Um, of course, that is being due to like being exposed to things I shouldn't have been exposed to at a very young age, but that's a topic for another podcast. Anywho, living a life that was not a life that I should have been living at a young age. I don't know why I went back, but I had just thought about it somewhere. Anyways, though, so I was able to develop this definition by being able to first identify being able to identify with Google's definition first is the reason why it was kind of like Google's definition walked so mine could run kind of thing. And I was able to identify because I've been on both sides of forgiveness. I've been on both sides of the definition. The one in the process of forgiving, and also being the one in the process of being forgiven. I can verbally say and like know for sure that being on both sides is hard, because on the side where you have to choose to forgive somebody is hard, because you could love this person could be the person you do anything for, and you have to choose to forgive them or not for what they did. And then being on the other side, the person asking for forgiveness, you literally have to like be okay if they do or don't forgive you. Either way, both parties are going to be okay. The one who's asking, in my opinion, will be more okay if they don't receive the forgiveness, but the person who is making the decision to forgive the other person, if they don't forgive that person, I think they will be what do they say, how do you say it, they will be worse off, or like it won't be good for them, because now you're holding on to something. Like, it's good to forgive but not to forget. I don't know, that whole forgive and forget, no, we gonna forgive but we ain't gonna like it in heaven. That's all I'm gonna say about that right there. Anyways though, so having to hear a confession and like, or even finding out something and then being asked to forgive is hard. But I personally think that it's important that you do forgive and just don't forget. And being the one to confess and ask for forgiveness is, like I said, harder, because you kind of have to be okay with how the situation, how the cookie crumbled. You have to be okay with it either way. So, moving on though, I recently had to ask for forgiveness for something, and for a long time, not for a long time, but for a minute, I was like, before I asked for forgiveness, I literally was like, okay, if I say this or if I tell this person this, then I have to be okay with possibly losing this person. And I think that that is a part of asking for forgiveness with, here's our favorite word, intention, and being intentional about asking for forgiveness. You literally have to be completely honest and allow the other person to make the decision to forgive you or not. You just have to give them literally all the information. Don't leave nothing out. Don't Don't water it down. Like, give them everything, no matter how hard it may be. For one, it's gonna make you feel better, and two, they deserve that, because don't have them forgiving you for half of what you did. That's like going to the doctor. I don't even like to use doctor references. That's like knowing that you're sick and having the conversation with yourself that you're sick, and knowing what herbs and vitamins and teas you need to drink, and only drinking the tea. Like, that's not, you're not, it's not, what are you, how are you? You see, it's confusing, because you just gonna stay sick. And is it really forgiveness if they only forgave you for the part that you felt comfortable telling them about? Like, no, that's not intentional. That's like cowardice. And I say that because the brave thing to do is to ask for forgiveness for everything, because you'll be asking for it once, instead of it possibly coming out later and it's like, yeah, you said this but you didn't say that. Now you gotta justify why you didn't say this but you said that, and why you didn't just include it with that, and now you just open up some more questions. So don't make it harder than it has to be. Just ask for forgiveness once for everything that you need forgiveness for, from that one person, and let them decide. Not thing after thing after thing. Don't just come and be like, hey, let's have a confession session, and ask them for forgiveness for things that you've been doing, like behind their back, or you've been, the thing. Like, don't say, here's a list of things that I've been doing that I want to ask for forgiveness for. By all means, if you come to that and you want to do that, sure. But if you're like, if it's fresh and you're like, okay, this just happened, and the longer I wait, the worse I'm gonna feel when I say something about it. Say something sooner than later. The moment it happens, go to whoever it is it happened to, or that is gonna affect, and say, hey, so I just need to talk to you real quick about something, and it's important. Make it an urgency, make it important, have the conversation. And of course, don't do it while they at work, or if they finna go out on a stage and perform. Don't do it that way. Do it when both of y'all have the time to talk to each other and open up, and really unpack what is going on. So that way, for me, of course, y'all know I'm always talking about me. For me, that's the type of setting that I want to do it in order for the definition, for my own definition, to be utilized. We can really unpack, okay, so what made you do that? Why did you feel like you need to do that? What space are you in right now that made you feel like that was okay to do? Because give me some understanding. I don't want to just be mad at you. I want to understand where it came from, because that's going to tell me whether this was really like a mistake, or if this is like deeper than me, and it goes past me. Like, it's something else that you dealing with that's causing you to make this mistake, especially if you made it more than one time. So I will say though that is the surface part. Everything I just said was literally the surface part of forgiveness. And the, like, below that is brings me to the topic, or the title of the episode, which is forgiving yourself. Because if you don't do that, then everything that I just talked about is not even gonna matter. Like, it's not even, you can ask somebody for their forgiveness, and let's say they choose to forgive you. Y'all unpack everything and they're like, all right, cool, and they choose to forgive you, but you don't forgive yourself. Like, and honestly, I realized that when I was the one having to do the forgiving, the person I had to, like, that I had forgiven was still having a hard time living like presently in that mistake, and being the one asking for forgiveness, I found myself doing the same thing. And in the moment of holding on to my mistake because I hadn't forgiven myself, I had to literally in that moment, I had to self reflect and say, okay, what would I tell someone who was in my position, who was coming to me? Like, if it was a girlfriend of mine that came to me for good advice, or what should I do, and things like that. If she came to me in this state, what would I tell her if she's like, yeah, he or she has forgiven me, but I'm just stuck, and I just feel like da da da, this and that, right? What would I want? What would I want the woman I want myself to say to me? Like, what would I want a woman to say to me? How do I want to speak to myself in this moment? How can I speak kindly to myself in this moment instead of beating up on myself, feeling guilt or feeling shame? And it was the same advice I gave to the person that I had forgiven, who hadn't forgiven themselves, and it was literally to forgive yourself. Because how is it gonna be, how's it gonna get better if you don't get better too? So um yeah, so that's another part of it that I think is super duper important, is that you forgive yourself, like I said, because if you don't, then what are we doing now? We just unpacked all this stuff and we ain't got no drawers to put it in, or we gotta decide. Like, you gotta decide if you gonna get his stuff away, or if you gonna, yeah, it's ideal that you give it away. It's ideal that you don't hold on to it after you forgive. Remember it so you don't do it again, but also, you know just do away with it, release it, don't hold on to it. So anyways, though, within forgiving myself, I had to first become self-aware and say that, you know and this is like outside of a relationship, just so I'm not like still talking about forgiving yourself in a relationship with anybody, but just forgiving yourself, period. Like, if this is you forgiving yourself, because like I said in my definition, it's the process of accepting and understanding a true person, or a true position in the person being forgiven, even if that is yourself. Like, even if that is yourself, that's the angle that I'm coming from now. So if it's yourself, now you need to be real with yourself. And so I literally had to become self-aware when I look back on some of my mistakes, or when I had to face myself, and it's like, okay, girl, so you the problem. You got yourself in that. You got us here, you got us in that. And we did that a couple of times, and you was the common denominator. So it's you, baby, you the problem. That's it, and that's all. And then I forgave myself by my own definition, because this was an internal thing and not an external thing. So it was important for me, because if I forgive myself for the things that I had done to others, and more importantly the things that I had done to myself, said to myself, and taken myself through, then it didn't really matter if anyone else chose to forgive me, because baby, I did it. I forgive me. And like, I had to forgive myself in order to move forward in my own life. So definitely forgive yourself first before anything else. Even before you go and ask for forgiveness from somebody else. Ask for forgiveness first. You know, for anything you want to come clean about or own up to, whether it be external or internal, just forgive yourself first. And I'm always gonna definitely encourage internal work before external work. So really consider the conditions you were under when you were in the position that you were in as a woman. Were you in survival mode? Is this a generational thing? Was this a coping mechanism? Was it a defense mechanism? Were you trying to escape something? Are you being petty? And let me pause, because if that's the case, baby, sis, woman to woman, I just need you to learn how to communicate at this point. And I may get some hate for this, but in my opinion, petty is played out, or maybe I just done exhausted my pettiness. I don't know. Either way, back on topic, extend grace and compassion to yourself and take the steps to discover the roots of the mistakes you made. And for sure, if this is like a mistake that you continue to make, like if you continue to choose the same guys and you're getting the same reactions and they're all doing the same thing, you might need to look at yourself and the type of guys that you're going for. Maybe you need to change something about who you allow into your space. So you continue to just Mm, what am I trying to say? I don't try to be quiet, but sometimes I'll be drawing a little blank because I like to say things in the best way possible. So when you analyze and discover the root of the mistakes, like make sure if there's something there, if you face it now, then your grandchildren or your kids won't have to. So just think about it that way. Do the work to discover and uncover what, especially like I said, if it's a repeated mistake. If this is just like, if this was like a one and done mistake and you're like, okay, I learned from that and I'm never doing it again, still learn from it so we don't do it again. But like I said, anyways, so of course, here at the ASMS podcast, we encourage therapy and therapy for black girls, therapy for black girls.com. Go there and find your therapist. They do accept government insurance for those who are on government insurance. Do not be ashamed of that. You can, because I was on it, and girl, listen, because listen, I found me a therapist on there, and baby, since I've been talking to my therapist on a weekly basis, it's a whole new world. I don't know how to sing, y'all, but y'all knew that already. Anyways, though, go on there, find your therapist, find somebody to talk to. They are not sponsors yet of this podcast, but we are going to continue to speak that and manifest that here on this podcast. And all in all, though, it's not about that. It's about your mental well-being, and the mental well-being of this womanhood culture in the black community that we are striving to build. So yeah, ladies, forgive yourself first before anything else, by my definition, if you like, which is the process of accepting and understanding the true position in the person being forgiven, even if this is yourself, when the mistake occurred, and extending grace and compassion to them, especially if you haven't lived the life they have or close to it. And even though, or even if, you can't bring yourself to understand their actions because of your own point of view. By that definition, forgive yourself, ladies. Extend forgiveness to others. Don't hold on to nothing at this point, baby. Forgive yourself and let it go. And whoever don't let it go, whoever holding on to it, let them go with it, because if they holding on to it, then they got blown in the wind with it. So forgive yourself. When you think about forgiving others, be understanding, extend the grace and the same grace and compassion you would to yourself if you were in their position. So yeah, I feel like this was a good episode, and that's a good place to stop. So y'all know, hold on. I feel like my mic had cut out a little bit. All right. So yeah, I feel like that was a good place to end um the I guess core of the episode. So y'all know we are at the last 10 minutes, and I have the self-love deck. Shout out to Ace Metaphor and the Tonight's Conversation podcast. I have this self-love deck, and I'm going to ask you women a question, and I'm also going to answer it from the self-love day. Of course, you all can answer in the comments if there's a comment section where you're listening. And you can also join the Facebook group, that is a private Facebook group for the listeners only, and answer more intimately in the Facebook group, where you have a community of women who are there to embrace you, interact with you, and you know, all that good stuff. Anyways, to the question. What is a time in your life where you settled for less than what you deserve? And what valuable lesson did you learn? Okay. So, that question for me is like a question that I've needed to answer. And I think that this was I think I always think that the topic, or the question that it asks is always a good one. Because I don't know, that was just a good question. That's all I'm gonna say. Anyways, so when's the time in your life where you settle for less than what you deserve? It was, I guess, this year, between February or March, whenever we got into a relationship. Getting into a relationship or a situationship for a long time, because we was in a gray area for a long time, because I did not want to be in a relationship. But it was, anyways, I'm not trying to go there. Anyways, I need to stop saying anyways so many times. I'm making mental notes, y'all. These episodes gonna get better as you go along, I promise. So I settled for less when I decided to stay in the situationship and not stand my ground with my ex after he lied to me before we even got into a relationship, where he didn't even have to lie. Like, I literally told this man, I'm not looking for no relationship. I literally just need a friend right now, and I just rather be friends. So only thing I need you to do with me and for me is to be honest with me. And he could not do that. And he lied to me for like 4 hours straight. And I kept asking the same questions, and common sense will tell you that, for one, if I'm asking you a question of that caliber, I don't even know if caliber could go there, but I'm putting it there. If I'm asking you a question of that caliber, I 9 times out of 10 already know the answer. And if I'm asking you that same question over and over, asking you, are you sure? I'm only giving you the opportunity to not lie again. And this man continued to lie. And it wasn't until I had the evidence in his face to where he was like, okay, yeah. Like, what in the man? That night was crazy. The cops got caught. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, so I settled for that. And the valuable lesson that I learned was to say no and walk away. Say no and walk away. The moment a boundary is crossed, and there was literally no reason at all for the boundary to be crossed, forgive them. because that's what we talking about in this episode is forgiveness. Forgive them for disrespecting you, for lying to you, for not being real with you. Forgive them and walk the fuck away. And don't fuck with their ass no more. That's the valuable lesson that I learned, because had I done that, only Lord knows where I would be. Granted, everything happens for a reason, blah blah, yada yada, all that good stuff. But fuck all that. I should have walked away from that motherfucker when he lied to me for 4 motherfucking hours straight. Anyways, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it no more, but it's just like, come on now. Like, I literally told you that you didn't have to lie to me, and you still went out your way for 4 hours straight to lie to me about the same question. Like, you was just gonna deny it until you can deny it no more. What kind of shit is that? Anyways, so the call. Oh yeah, y'all answer that question in the Facebook group. And I am going to continue the conversation with you all there, and of course, be in community with y'all and talk to y'all. I love having conversation with other women in an uplifting way. So yeah, and the call to action is to either in the Facebook group or in your own little journal, not to call I'm not calling it little to minimize it, because I got a little journal and it's not little at all. Actually, it's a spiral notebook and it's really thick and the rings are not small. That's all I'll say. So the call to action is to jot down mistakes you made and forgive yourself for them out loud, and then do something you enjoy and post yourself in the Facebook group doing something you enjoy after you've shared your mistakes, if that's what you decide to do. Post yourself forgiving yourself. Make a video of yourself forgiving yourself for whatever mistakes you jotted down on that paper. Rip the paper up, burn the paper up, wet the paper up, throw the paper away, whatever you got to do after you forgive yourself. Rid yourself of the mistakes, because you've forgiven yourself. Let them go and release them, and then go do something you enjoy, whether that's binge watching a favorite show, cooking, eating, dancing, sleeping. Hell, if you love sleeping, take your ass to sleep. Just do something you enjoy doing and post yourself having a good old time after forgiving yourself in the Facebook group. And of course, I have developed these questions that it's only two, and this is of course just for y'all feedback. How has this episode enhanced womanhood for you moving forward? And what are your biggest takeaways? I think that I'm actually going to just start asking those two questions in the Facebook group and in the public group. I don't know why I'm telling y'all. I'm making a public note. I'm probably not gonna ask those two questions after the pod. I'm probably just gonna ask them like on the Instagram or somewhere on the social media. Note to self. Got it. Okay. Well, yeah, okay. So toast to you, baby. We at that segment. This is my favorite part of the show. I hope y'all know that, because I get to shout out people once, y'all start being active, and I get some shout outs in here of women who have accomplished things. I will shout y'all out. So this shout out goes to me because yeah, I walked away from that relationship. Even though it took a while, I walked away from that relationship. And that was just off top. But really though, I'm toasting to myself because I have forgiven myself for a lot of things. And I have been able to fully embrace my whole self due to the action of forgiving myself. So toast to me, and toast to the women out there who have done the same thing, who have shown up for themselves, shown out for themselves, and forgiven themselves for any and everything that they could ever think of that they've done. Shout out to the women who have forgiven other women for things that their husband might have a problem with. No tea, no shade, no tea, no shade. I'm just saying, shout out to those women who have forgiven those women instead of trying to protect the predator of a husband that they have. No tea, no shade, no tea, no shade, no tea, no shade. But yeah, shout out to the women who are who have forgiven their husbands for genuine mistakes, not continued mistakes because they're predators. No tea, no shade, no tea, no shade. I'm just saying. But I don't know why I'm saying shout out. Toast to the women who have just come a long way and forgiven. Toast to the women who have opened themselves up to forgiving people because they've forgiven people so much that they just don't even want to do it anymore. So toast to the women who've opened themselves back up to forgiving people. Toast to you, baby, because that is a hard thing to do. It is, and I'm proud of you for it. And yeah, that is this episode. I'm gonna be quiet now. And of course, the credits are going to start rolling now. Thank you all for joining me this week on another affair of a Single Mother Success podcast. The links to all of our info will be in the description of this pod and any other pod streaming service that you're listening to. It will be available in the description below. Remember to join the Facebook group, the private Facebook group if you are a listener, and if you are a subscriber, go in there. There's a community there for you, community of women, and join the Facebook group. Subscribe. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter that comes out on Sundays at 10 a.m. and it's called Real Success Through Perseverance, Letters of Legacy. So it's just, like I said, a newsletter, and it gives you a weekly affirmation and a weekly scripture and a video to carry you throughout the week until we meet on the podcast on Thursday. So stay engaged, interact with us, follow us on Instagram. And when you get in the Facebook group, introduce yourself. I just want to thank you all for listening to another episode and interacting with us and joining us this week. Going forward, throughout this week, remember to take care of yourself, ladies. Love yourself, forgive yourself, and celebrate yourself on the daily, on the hourly, on the minutely, on the secondly, baby. And remember, toast to yourself, even if you by yourself. Just because you by yourself don't mean you alone, and just because you alone don't mean that you lonely. Love your company, and love to spend time with yourself, because at the end, ourself is all we have. So take care of yourself, and I will see y'all next week.